Good morning. My name is Sandy Serrano Sewell. I'm the Executive Director of Centro De Niños. Centro De Niños is a 47-year-old plus agency in East Los Angeles, providing childcare and child development services to young children. We're so excited that you're with us today for the last of our series of virtual workshops that we had on the whole impact and challenge that COVID has had on the greater community. The first workshop we explored the vaccines around COVID that have been developed. We explored the fairy tales around the vaccines, and we had a really great presentation, and that presentation was in Spanish. The second presentation was a panel of teens who discussed with us the many challenges that they've been facing in their lives with the COVID and how it has impacted them. So we're so happy to be with you today. Our third one is going to be on social-emotional development of children and distance learning. We all know that distance learning has been such a challenge to so many families, and we felt that this subject, and since we have so many great representatives of actual practitioners from the field, to be able to discuss it with you. Our first speaker is going to be Dr. Alma Guerrero. I wanted to take a few moments to talk about Dr. Guerrero. Her and I met a few years ago and had the pleasure before this COVID hit for about a little over 2 years to work on a project for Latino families and how to develop and send out healthy food messages to try to prevent the increase in diabetes. So that was a subject that we really were able to really discover a lot of things about, and about how were the eating habits of our families and who really rules our families when it comes to eating habits. We're so pleased and so thrilled that in presenting these workshops, these virtual workshops, that our partners have been USC and Univision. We're so excited, and our hostess for today is from Univision. You can catch her on 34. Her name is Maria Nava. Maria.
Sorry. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. It's great to meet all of you.
Maria, you going to introduce the other speakers?
So we're going to go ahead and introduce each of the speakers. And we do want to give a heads up to everyone who has joined us this morning as well, that you will have an opportunity, of course, to ask your questions and your concerns through our Q&A, and you will be able to submit your questions there. We will get to all those questions answers later on in the town hall this morning. For now, we're going to introduce each and every one of our speakers. And again, thank you guys for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. I'm sure I have a lot to learn about all these topics. So our first speaker is Dr. Alma Guerrero.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here joining with you. I am a general pediatrician and faculty at UCLA. And my interest, as you heard earlier from Sandy, is really working with Latino families, particularly those that have children between birth and up to 5 years of age. So I think supportive of families and parents being sort of like the best advocates, best teachers for their kids. And so I have worked in the community with Sandy and with others, and it's a real pleasure to be here with everybody this morning. And I don't know if I will be sort of heading into my slides or if the others will be presented right now.
You could go ahead and start.
Okay, so maybe perhaps, well, great. Thank you so much for bringing up some visuals that I brought along with me. So as we're all here today to discuss and learn some more about child development and particularly social emotional development. So one of the things that I'm going to try in a very brief, sort of period is try to explain what that means exactly. And for those of you who already, know what that is or are very familiar, please feel free to, follow along and ask your questions, because we will be able to come back to that. So if we could go to the next slide, what I've laid out for us is really an opportunity to first describe what child development is, think about the different components that as like physicians or as providers, we tend to focus on, right? And then spend a little more time diving into child development. So if we go to the next slide, one of, I think, the easiest ways to try to think about child development is essentially how their abilities, how their skills change as they grow older. So for most of us, that's pretty easy to think about when we think about what we call like motor or movement skills, right? Baby goes from not being able to sit up to then sitting up to then crawling and taking the first step and using their arms, right? So that is essentially what child development means. We're seeing growth in their abilities. The next slide. But what's really important to also make sure we learn about today is that child development is more than the movement. So oftentimes when providers, teachers, anybody that you may be interacting with in the community that is supporting you as a parent or with your child, we tend to look at these abilities in 5 categories, right? We kind of talked about the physical one already, but the second one is language, right? And language is not just can your child speak or, can they communicate, but also how well they're understanding what you communicate to your child. Also cognitive, so again, problem solving, their thinking. Emotional, which is their ability to, understand other people's feelings, so to speak. And then the social, which is what are their interactions like with you as a parent or with other kids. So if we go to the next slide, I put up a picture here of my little girl when she was probably about eight months or so. And I wanted to use her to sort of kind of just give some more examples of all of these different sort of categories, right, that we think of when we're trying to understand child development. So as we said earlier, the physical skills. So at this particular age, my child was, as you can see in the picture, she's sitting up, she's using her arms, she's able to, we call it fine motor, which is the movement of the smaller parts of her body. So like her fingers, her hands. So here you can see part of her physical abilities isn't just sitting up, but the fact that she can bring a toy right to her mouth. Her language skills at this age, what we would expect is that she's babbling, obviously not saying any words, but trying, right? And then at the same time that she's responding to me when I'm talking to her, she seems to, begin to understand, especially probably by the tone of my voice, that, I'm communicating to her, or she's beginning to understand her name. And so when we're talking about emotional skills for her, part of that is that what we would look for at her age is her ability to smile and to sort of learn to identify like a happiness, right? Some joy. And part of how she's able to learn that is how she's interacting with me, how she's interacting with other family members, and this ability to really respond, right? So that's part of the social skills, which are very oftentimes connected to the emotional skills. By me singing her a song or using a slightly, higher pitch in my voice, she starts to smile. She's beginning to, almost kind of like dance with me, if you will. And so she smiles. That kind of encourages me to do even more. And then she continues to smile, right? So it's really kind of back and forth. And that's what is really important to understand when we're talking about social emotional skills, that she's learning, identifying, expressing those feelings, able to pick up what I'm trying to communicate to her with my feelings, right? That she makes me very happy, that I'm now singing louder or whatnot. So we'll go into some more examples for that. And then before we move on, the other category that we also, assess or sort of think about when it comes to child development is their cognitive skills. So again, for her, what that means is that she's at her age, just picking up that toy is sending a lot of messages to her brain. It's either cold, it's either warm, it's rough, it's soft. All of that is registering in her brain, and that's how she's learning. And she's also, perhaps if it's a toy that makes noise, she's learning that too, right? If I shake it, oh, it makes a noise. So that's part of this important learning process that's going on, even at like this really young age, right? And so the next slide, this is her when she's a little bit older. I think she's probably about 2 here. And so what you see are just some more examples of what she's able to do. Again, her motor abilities, she's standing up now. She can use like her arms. She's now with her hands using the whisk. At this age, she, most children at this age are expressing, 2, sometimes 3 words. They're all also able to, she's able to like carry out, let's say, a request that I give her. So meaning, can you pick up this diaper and please put it in the trash? Those are 2 separate things that I'm asking her to do. And that's an important part of language development, that she can, take that information that she hears and, understand what that means and carry it out, right? And then what's really, great at this age, their cognitive skills, what that looks like is what we would call like pretend play. And so what that means is, like, here you can see she's pretending to play in a kitchen, right? And that's not something that we would see in the 9-month-old, but certainly something we would expect to see closer to 2 years of age. And in her terms of her emotional and social skills, again, more of what she was doing at a younger age, but perhaps now, not just with smiling, but with words, right? One of my little girl's favorite lines right now is, I like it, I like it. So she likes everything. So the fact that she can, tell me that, not just with her smile, but with her words, that's really important. She's letting me know what makes her happy. And at the same time, with this language, she's also able to interact a lot more with her teacher. And again, this growth that we want to see in her ability to kind of respond to me as a parent, to her teacher, to her peers. So all of those things are really, really important when we're thinking about children's growth and their development. So if we could go to the next slide. One of the important things that I wanted to make sure I emphasize with you today is that although I went through some examples of these sort of different categories that we look at when we're thinking about child development, is that they're all connected, right? We always look at the child as a whole. And I gave you some examples about how social skills and emotional skills are really related, right? But some other things to sort of keep in mind is these examples that I have here, right? So once kids can learn to talk and use words, it's obviously much easier for them to express their emotions, right? With that example that I gave you that my little girl says, I like it, I like it. Like, that takes language, and that takes social and emotional skills, right? Because she has learned to identify a feeling. And then the social skills part is that she's letting me know she is learning how to interact with me. And by telling me that, she's going to pick up on my response. And so that's the beginning of, her skills in terms of how to interact with people. Same thing with a younger kid. When we're thinking about their motor abilities, it's also thinking about their cognitive skills, right? They're crawling, they're going to learn more, they're going to get into more, and everything that they get into, that's some learning going on, and there's memory being formed there as well. So just sort of keep in mind that they're all very related. We like to think about child development in these sort of categories, but we are looking at the child, as a whole. It just kind of helps us, I think, look at some more like details, perhaps, to try to, assess strengths in a child, and perhaps those opportunities where we want to support child development a little bit better. If we go to the next slide. And so some additional concepts that I hope I gave you some good examples of is how interactive and dynamic child development is. So I gave you that example of what my 9-month-old was doing. And here's just another example that I think you can appreciate with the visuals there in the pictures, right? an infant will respond to what feedback or what kind of response they get from a caregiver or a parent, right? And that's really, really important, because if there's a parent or a caregiver that is not, for example, let's say smiling back, the parent or caregiver is not smiling back to that infant, well, that infant learns to adapt to that. And so what can happen over time is, like, you know, that infant may not like light up when they see a parent. They may not smile, right? And so much of their development is ongoing and very, very much about interacting with their environment. The next slide, please. And so we wanted to spend a little more time thinking about social emotional development. And why does it matter? Well, because the social skills is what allows a child to interact with others, to develop relationships, and to learn how to share, learn how to cooperate, learn really how to, you know, be an integral part of the family, or learn how to like be a really, you know, a great part of the classroom. Emotional skills, those are what we would call those abilities for an infant or a child to learn how to identify their feelings, express them. And then a really important concept as they get older is their ability to sort of manage and their strong emotions, right? So for those of you who have a toddler or, you know, somewhere in this age of a preschooler age, that's a really important skill that is happening at this time. The way to sort of like cope with a really strong reaction to something. Next slide, please. So I just here, what I have are some other examples of what social emotional development looks like, let's say in the infant period, a toddler period, and preschool period. So I think we spent maybe perhaps a little bit of time thinking about the infant and toddler. So maybe let's transition a little bit more to the preschoolers. So what does social emotional development look like in a preschooler? Well, that's perhaps you can think about someone who's like 3 to 5 years of age. And a 3 to 5 year old should be learning how to share toys, how to take turns, you know, how to be cooperative, how to play with other children. You can imagine a 1 year old, 2 year old is not going to have yet those abilities, but certainly as they're approaching closer to 4 or 5 years of age, you know, that should be a skill that is being learned and hopefully, you know, being kind of strengthened. And so again, peers become really important. So the importance of, you know, our preschoolers being in a center-based or school-based setting is really, really important for their social skills. And again, this important ability to be able to change from, let's say, they're doing something really fun in the classroom, right? And being able to understand that it's time to, you know, stop doing that and move on to the next activity of the day. Being able to make that switch is something that is really, really important to support and a really important part of their social emotional development. Next slide. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that, again, we just spent a little bit more time kind of thinking about is how important this social emotional development is for school success. And what the science and the data tells us is that social emotional health is not just important for school success, but also for later work career and overall health. And so I think that's why it's such an important, I think, topic today, to sort of really try to understand not just what social emotional skills and health is, but how do we support that, right? Like what are those kind of, I call them like inputs, but, you know, like what are those things that are going to promote healthy social emotional development? So just, if you look at this table, I hope it's not too small, but I wrote down like some of the abilities that we want to make sure children are developing when it comes to their social emotional skills, and how that translates into a school setting, and how you can hopefully begin to understand that this ability, for example, to communicate, let's say, their feelings, right? This is actually something that my little girl struggles with, is being able to communicate that to her teacher or just anyone that she really trusts, is to say, I'm sad, or I'm mad, or I'm hurt, right? I need help. That may not, that's something we have to support and teach our children how to do. And so that's why this, you know, my interest for me in really working with parents of young children, and also I think over time I've been able to do with Sandy and some of my other community partners. All of this is super important because you're laying down the foundation for them to excel again in school, and that pays off in really great, tremendous ways into the future, right? So if we go to the next slide, I spent some time in the previous slide sort of talking about, well, what are those things that really support healthy social emotional development? The most important fundamental things for healthy child development is feeling safe, feeling protected, feeling loved. So that looks like that I have a caregiver, a parent who nurtures me, makes me happy, makes me smile, understands when I need help, is responding to either my happiness or to, my sadness. Of course, good nutrition and sleep, very important, and stability and routines. Because part of what makes a child feel protected and safe is knowing what's going to happen next. If kids aren't able to have a strong sense of that, right, that is not going to make them feel safe. And so that has really important implications for healthy development. So that's, these are all sort of like things that where parents and family are going to be the most important people in young children's lives. They're the ones who are going to be giving that caregiving, setting up those routines, making sure that there's good sleep. And again, if the child is in a setting or school setting, teachers and peers become very, very important in playing a role and supporting these areas. So if we go to the next slide, what I did here was try to think about these important aspects that we want to give children so they have a healthy development, and then kind of look at, well, what's happened with COVID. So when we talked about, the importance of a parent, a caregiver, whether it's a grandparent, it actually doesn't really matter too much who that individual is for that child or for that infant, but it has to be someone who the infant or child can go to and feel protected, right? And feel loved and know that that person's going to respond to whatever their needs are. So if we have, for example, a parent who, because of COVID, just all the kids being at home, right, creates a tremendous amount of parental stress. That might, not always, but that might interfere with that parent's ability to, to be kind of fully present and be nurturing and responding to that infant or child. So you can also imagine, like, something that many of us have experienced, those important family members or those important people that were really important for children to learn how, to feel joy, to feel like joy from playing, feel joy from visiting. Those things came to a halt, right? Because these children, all of us, were not able to interact with others in the way that we usually do. And and I know in the Latino community, our extended family, our grandparents, they're such an integral part of us. And so to have that interrupted, right, that you can begin to see how that might change a child or infant's experience with, kind of missing out on those relationships and those feelings, right? Sleep. Let's think with other examples. Sleep. Sleep is so important for child development. It's very important for adults too, but especially critical for kids and infants. So think about maybe how has that impacted sleep? Some, I think, kind of easy ways to imagine that is that, there's been so many changes with family and household routines. How did that maybe affect sleep time, wake time? Has it changed so that the hours of sleep perhaps aren't, the same? Or perhaps because there's been changes in the home, is a child now maybe in a different sleeping area, and so is maybe the quality of the sleep not so great if there's sort of a lot of noise or just, not having it be a comfortable, quiet space for sleep. Same thing for, this kind of ties into stability and routines, right? COVID has just turned everything upside down for many of us. So a lot of times we're struggling with demanding schedules. Like, it's very common for families to have, multiple children who all have multiple schedules for logging in. And, that can just create a level of like change that our little ones aren't used to, right? And again, the closure, it means that they can't go to school anymore. It means that like everything that they've been able to kind of predict and follow has now suddenly changed, right? And so I have some additional examples here in the table, but you can hopefully begin to kind of appreciate all of these areas that are important for child development, how they've probably, been impacted in some shape, way, or form because of what the pandemic has brought on. Next slide. And so one of the things that I wanted to sort of conclude with is just reminding us that children need to feel safe, secure, and loved, right? And so anything that's going to threaten that can create stress or can interrupt healthy development, right? And so what that can do over time is perhaps lead to risks or opportunities for challenges in learning and behavior. Next slide. And so I think that one of the things that we can hopefully spend some more time talking about and perhaps our other presenters will share with you is, so what are those things you can do at home? What are those things that maybe we can learn today that might help our families, our young children cope, right? Cope a little better with all of this that's just been changed for them, so that we are continuing to make them feel loved, to make them feel secure, to make them feel safe, to make them feel like we know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know what happens in the evening, right? So one of the most important things, and I know it's incredibly difficult, but is to practice routines, right? It is incredibly challenging for so many reasons, but remembering that if you practice those and try to get into a routine, what that's doing for a young child and infant is they're able to know what's supposed to happen during the day. Again, they're able to know what happens in the morning, what happens in the evening. And, it's a schedule that you're following so that kids end up having enough sleep. There's like snacking time. They're not just like snacking all day, and that there's opportunities for play and exercise. Next slide. And then one of the things that I think is also really important that I put this slide up as a reminder is the importance of talking, communicating to our children. I don't know about you, but my experience in a traditional Latino household, my parents are Mexican, is not sharing with me or my siblings when there was like a crisis, whether it was something, kind of terrible that happened in the family or maybe something in the world, in our community. It wasn't talked about. And it wasn't really the norm to have a parent turn to me and say like, oh, how are you? Like, what's your understanding of what's going on? How are you feeling about that? Right. It was just kind of like, you just, as there's like a famous comedian who says, don't cry, right? That's oftentimes what we learn is to not express ourselves and sometimes not giving the space to do that. So one of, I think, the important things that can happen, not always, but if children aren't learning or giving the opportunity to talk about what they're picking up on, they may actually begin to think it's something a lot more, threatening or a lot like just terrible than perhaps it actually is. They might be thinking, oh my God, it's something so bad happening that nobody even wants to talk to me about it. Like no one, I walk into the room and it's like, but kids are really smart. Even our infants, they will pick up, they pick up very easily on many signs that something's changed, right? And so I think it's really, really important to, check in with young kids, find out how they're feeling, find out what they understand. I think it can be a lot healthier than having them kind of guess what might be going on, because again, guessing is then not promoting predictability or safety. It's unknown. I don't know, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I think another important thing too with the younger kids, perhaps not for the older ones, is, but I think really limiting the media exposure to, sometimes like really devastating cases or stories that are sometimes common, right, in the media. An important also part of communication that is important is the reassurance you can provide them, right? Even if you might be struggling as a parent. Well, what do I say to my child when he says I'm scared, or I don't know, I don't know, understand why everybody's scared? It's okay to sometimes say I don't have all the answers, or I don't, I know it's hard to understand, but making sure that you communicate to them all the steps that you're taking as a parent, and perhaps those steps that are being taken in the community to keep them safe, to keep you as the parent safe, to keep everybody safe. Again, that ability to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel protected, to have stability, very, very important, but extremely difficult, right, with what's going on currently. So I think that was my last slide, and I'll stop there, and I think hear from the other panelists. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for all that information, Dr. Guerrero. We really appreciate it. And yes, we will now continue with the presentations. We have our next speaker now, and we will go to Teresa Figueres, and she is a director of child development early primary programs in the Hacienda La Puente Unified School District, and she has been in childhood development field for 43 years. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you, Sandy, for inviting me. This is something I've never done. I've been on Zoom a lot lately, especially this past week with our Head Start federal review, all virtual. So it's a little hard, to say the least. So I'm going to start with, so I'm here with a PowerPoint for you. I'm going to talk about our distance learning and our in-person learning program with the school district. We have a children's center that has 358 children, not at this time because we only have about 120. We have 19 Head Start programs that are doing distance learning, and about 8 part day state programs that are doing distance learning. Next slide, please. So how do we do distance learning? And first of all, I just want to give thanks to my TOSA that put this together. If I didn't have these great TOSAs that would put these things together for us, I'd be lost. I'm old school, so. So we do it by Zoom. So next slide, please. What are the challenges that our teachers are facing? Frozen screens and technology problems. This week, we had a lot of technology problems because we had Zoom was freezing all week long with different school districts. The muting and unmuting. If children don't unmute themselves or the parents don't unmute, we hear some strange things in those houses. So it's pretty funny, and sometimes it's sad. So some students are dominating the conversation. It's that when it's in person. So now, especially if they have their little Zoom on and their pictures in the front, they're going to talk and talk and talk. Some are laying in the sofa, some are laying on bed and not paying attention. Dealing with the unexpected. The unexpected can be somebody walks into the room and might be saying some words that are not appropriate, or walking in the background with pajamas on, just different things that might happen. Do I require video or not? I know that the teachers try to mute them and have the videos off sometimes, but we really try to have all children on the video. But some parents would rather not. Next slide, please. What do we use to communicate with parents? We do emails, we do Zoom, we do Class Dojo, we do the Remind Me app, and we do the Line app. They're all apps that are on your phones, and so the teachers can go ahead and communicate with parents on the different with these different areas. And we also do phone calls, good old phone. Next slide, please. This is the different areas. We just, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but you can, once, I know this is being recorded, so you can go ahead and press any one of those, and shows you how to do it. And it'll show you all the techniques. But if you ever need anyone to teach you, just call me. I'll get somebody, not me, but I'll get you somebody to teach you these different areas. But these all are the different areas of communication that we use. Next slide, please. So what I'm using right now to show you all this is through the Google Slides. And so our teachers use these so that they can present their activity for the day. Now, I have a range of teachers. Some are great with technology. Some are not that great. Some are old school like myself. And we're showing maybe something on, like I'm showing you my hand, you know, I can't even put my hand in the right place. There you go. You know, we're doing it that way. But our great teachers with technology are using Google Slides. Next slide, please. And here it is. See, if you press on any of these, if you're watching this, then you can go to the numbers. They talk about the numbers. They talk about the colors. They talk about parts of a bar graph. You know, they talk about different things. And of course, the teacher is following everything, and then she'll point it. She'll use her mouse to point at it, and then she'll click it and use it to, you do the activity with the child. So you can see all the different things that we have available, and more, much more. Next slide, please. We can also open the books, and let's say we're going to do, how does your salad grow? We click on it and we can start reading it. They can follow with us. And I say with us, it's the teachers. So you can go on to the next slide, please. Is that it? Here. Next slide, please. Oh, there you go. In-person learning. Like I said, we have a child development center that on a normal time, we would have about 358 children with 24 children in each classroom. Right now, we have about 10 to 12 children in each classroom. We have also cohorts. So we have about 4 classrooms that are only siblings, because that's something licensing has said that we have to have. So we have only siblings in that classroom, because if we do have a COVID outbreak, it's only with that classroom. And we have had to close some classrooms in the past. We're getting better just because COVID is getting a little bit better. We're not seeing it in our adults as much. As a matter of fact, this coming week, our AMAR Children's Center is being vaccinated. All the adults are being vaccinated through our school district. Fantastic. Okay, next slide, please. Here are 2 different classrooms. And you see that we're social distancing. They have to wear their masks at all times, of course, not when they eat. And we used to be able to go eat in the cafeteria, but no more. We have to stay in the classroom. We have to, and that's difficult sometimes with our, you know, with social-emotional. They used to be able to see their friends in the other classes. And now, you know, it's, they go outside to play just the one classroom, or they stay in the classroom to eat. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we've done is bring the things that the children are doing inside, because none of the parents can go into our child development center anymore. We used to be able to have them walk through, drop off the child in the classroom, say hi to their friends, you know, family members that attend the same place, but no more. We have to stop them at the gate, and we take the children's temperatures. We also have to take all of our adult teachers, all our teachers' temperatures as well. So we've made some posters just to show the different classrooms for the parents to see what they're doing in the classroom. Next, and where it says these little bags that we have bags for each child with their names on it. And in the classroom, we also have little kits for them. Each child has to have their own kit. So, okay. So that is for what we do in our school district. And we've had to learn a lot. We've made mistakes, but also I believe, well, we're the only, the Children's Center is the only center open, the only school open at our school district right now. Our school district will not be opening until August 7th, I believe. So, but we as a child development center are the only ones open. The distance learning are at different elementary schools, but they are not, of course, not open. They're distance learning, but those are the Head Start and the Part Day State preschool programs. Our CalSafe program, which is the teen parent program, is not open as well, because we have infants there, and we had to close because the high school was closed. So, well, and that's what I do.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for all that information. And I just want to remind everybody that has joined this meeting this morning, we will be going to questions and answers later on. We still have a few more speakers presenting in the next few minutes. You do have an option of sending in your questions, submit your questions in the Q&A option here, and you'll also have an option to raise your hand and do it via audio video later on during the town hall. So we will now go to our next speaker presenter, and it is Leticia Santos Cuevas. She is the program director for Centro De Niños and has been since 2017. Good morning, Leticia. Leticia, unmute. We can't hear you. There you go.
Good morning. Good morning. So again, I'm the director for Centro De Niños, and what we do, we have two programs. We have an infant program, and we have a preschool program. In our toddler program, we have about 16 kids, and we have about 24 kids in our preschool program. So when all this, we had to close in March, it was very, and then we had to close, then we had to open, and then we had to reopen again because we were able to open. So that was very confusing for children and families. So, and for us, it was very challenging because we had to think about what we're going to do now, how we're going to change our classrooms, how we going. There were many questions when we read the state guidelines. We were asking ourselves, okay, how are we going to keep our kids 6 feet apart? How are we gonna be able to provide distance learning? So many of these questions, arose. So as a group, we got together and we started strategizing. Okay, we're gonna have to buy new furniture. We have to have little smaller tables for the children to have their own table and be 6 feet apart. We had to get one of the things that was Sandy's idea was to get masks for each child, and also be colored. Each color had their own color to be able to identify where they were. So that worked for us. Um, so um, next slide. G. All right, thank you. Oh, that's backwards. That's the last one. That's the last one. Okay. So for toddlers, our toddler classroom, we have two of them, and we have in one of the classrooms we have 6 children, and in the other class we have only 12 children. As the state already sent us some information that we are able to take in 14 children now, so we are working on that. Again, this is a challenge because we have to figure out, okay, do we have the space to bring more families to our center? So I'm going to speak about the toddlers. I know Dr. Guerra already talked about the social emotional part, but in our program, we, especially for the toddlers, we really emphasize on these things, some of these things. For example, when the kids are mimicking, they mimic each other. They're eager to discover and learn. They're figuring out their boundaries, trust, not only the children, but families. Can I trust bringing my child? Are they going to be safe? But in the classroom, of course, we focus on that trust. The children are trusting our caregivers, our teachers. They follow simple instructions, so we have to be very simple, using small words. Show affection, again, showing love, showing that they're safe, showing that they're going to be okay. Also share. One of the things for us, of course, at this stage, they don't want to share. They don't want to share. They see other kids and they want to grab the toys. They want everything the other kids want. They're following their teacher everywhere. So again, there's a child in the picture. I put this picture because the child is sitting on the dinosaur and she's trying to take away the pig from her friend, and the other little girl saying, "No, it's mine, mine, mine." So she turns around and just kind of like tries to walk away from her. So this is the time where our caregiver, teachers, they explain to them and they talk to them and say, "Oh, you want the pig? You will have, we can after she's done, we're gonna wash it and then you can have it." Next slide. In the morning, every morning, our teachers check in with our children. They're ask how they're doing today, how was their day today. Also, we have these emotional cards and emotional mood, what they're called mirrors, and they have pictures of children different, showing different faces like happy, sad, angry, worried, excited. So teachers always ask the children, "How are you doing today?" They're checking in every single day. How are they doing? And they take the time to talk to them. And also they bring their peers and to also contribute some ideas of what they can do for the day to make them feel better. Teachers walk around sparking conversation with the children. For example, one of the pictures on your left shows the teacher talking to the child, showing the child, "Oh, you have a purple square. What are you building?" So the child, they're engaging with the teacher, even though they can be engaging with each other or visiting each other, but the teachers go around and talk to the children, so they know that they have some kind of conversation. During group time, everyone is encouraged to participate in games, books, conversation with their peers, share their projects, if they were color, if they had a building, if they glue something, they're able to share with the other children. Outside, again, it's time for them to explore, climb, use obstacle course with all the materials that we have around, water play, water the garden. One of the most important thing is we have a beautiful garden, and it's also a music area where children take turn to go water the plants and also playing the instruments. And also we encourage imaginative play because it's very important at this time, at this stage. It helps with their social emotion. So in the picture on the right, this is a typical group time. Children are have these mats, route circle mats, and they have their own color, their own chairs for them to sit down and for them to talk to each other, check in, do songs, read a book. Next slide. Environment. Environment is the most important thing because children need to come in and feel safe that they're going to be in the classroom and everything is going to be there for them. Again, every day we the teachers clean sanitize the toys. They change their backpacks. As you can see in the picture, they have their own backpack. They have glue. They have all the materials, that they need for the day, and books and puzzles. So they are able to go in there and get something out of there that they want to create. For example, this week, some of the girls were cutting paper, gluing it together, and making bags to take home. So they were very creative, and all that stuff was in their bags. Each child has their own, again, table. They're 6 feet apart, and they have their backpack and with materials throughout the day. Materials are disinfected and changed every day. All toys are put in a basket and there are low shelves for children to reach out and grab to play with. Again, all the toys are put in these little tiny baskets, and so they're able to go in and get their basket of toys so they can play for the day or for whenever they want. Once the child is done, the child takes the baskets to the counter to get disinfected. It is very important for children to be independent. We teach children very young to be independent, to be able to do their do their own stuff for themselves. It builds confidence, self-awareness, trust, and self-control. As we know, as Dr. Dora was talking about, those are all parts of having a good foundation. Next slide. Preschool age. Again, we're developing. Children are being affection and with their friends without prompting. They're able to take turns, show a wide range of emotions, and are clear how they are feeling. They are verbal. They can carry conversation using more than one sentence. They're more physical and like to explore. Also, again, there be share. It's very important. Um, being COVID right now, at this stage, children do not like to share. They kind of hoard their own toys. They don't want to share with anyone else. But now since COVID, they have their own toys, so it's pretty they're pretty happy because now they don't have to share. The only thing they have to do is wait for their turn to have their toys. At Centro De Niños, children help children build a level of trust and security by creating a safe environment where children can have a variety of opportunities for play, share, negotiate, make connections, and create dance and learn. When a child is having a hard time, they give them space and use their emotion cards to communicate their feelings. So again, their cards are in their backpacks. They can take their cards anytime they want, and they can talk to the teacher or they can talk to their peer. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling happy or excited, and they have a conversation about that. It's very important that we stop and we talk to the children how they're feeling. Together with the teachers and peers, they help each other come up with solutions for whatever the child is feeling for that day. Next slide. So distance learning. What is working at Centro De Niños? Well, we are able to offer 2 sessions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. especially for parents who are working in the morning, they can tune in the afternoon, or if they're working in the afternoon, they can tune in the morning. So we offer 2 sessions, and parents are, of course, they're welcome to do both if they would like to, if they're staying home. For toddlers, we encourage parents to tune in for at least 15 minutes. The other advantage we have is we have a full staff. Each classroom has three staff. The teachers are able to step out and do Zoom for the children. Having full-time distance learning specialists on site is very beneficial, because we are this distance learning specialist is just focusing on the teachers doing Zoom, making sure they tune in, make sure the computers are on, make sure that they have their own materials. Also for parent support, they make sure that the parent tunes in. If the parent's having difficulty, they text her and they let her know, hey, we're waiting, or we're having a difficulty. Can you please tell the teacher? So again, there's a lot of communication going between the distance learning specialist, the parent, and our teachers. Also providing workshops on how to use Zoom. The distance learning specialist, anything that she finds, any resources, right away she shares with the teachers. Provide developmentally age-appropriate curriculum based on what the children that's on site are doing. Myself and the site director and the site supervisor and the distance learning specialist, we get together every month to come up with a curriculum that is child appropriate and for on site and for the children who are at home. So we want to also, with emphasis of continue that connection between on site and at home. Social and emotional support through Zoom and Learning Genie. We adopted a new program called Learning Genie. Learning Genie has numerous resources, from books, from videos, from movies, from Zoom meeting, Zoom meetings. You can do Zoom meetings through it, but it's a great tool for connecting with the parents. It's another communication tool for the parents. The student, the parent can communicate with the teacher, and the teacher can communicate with the parent. Also, we provide extension activities through Learning Genie. Provide books on COVID-19 for children. We have a whole library of children that are especially dedicated to social-emotional. Also, they have books on how to socialize with other kids. If you want to hug, how to hug, like a bear hug in the air. There's also books on masks. Why do we wear a mask? Also books on COVID-19. So we have a whole range of books that the teachers have accessibility to read to the children, especially when somebody's feeling sad. They'll get the book and read the book with all the children. Provide each child at home with emotion cards to express how they're feeling during Zoom with teachers. Again, they also, the children who are at home, they have their own set of cards. And when the teacher tune in, the teacher asks the children to take their cards and to show them how they're feeling today. And if the child takes 15, 20 minutes to talk about themselves, it's okay, or if they take 5 minutes to talk about themselves or what they did that day or what they did over the weekend or how they're feeling, it's okay. We want to make sure that we give them the stage to express how they're feeling. Open communication with the parents via Learning Genie, text, email, phone calls, or going on a home visit. Again, the distance learning specialist is the one who is our liaison to all of that communication. She is available also to go to home visits, just in case a parent is having a hard time with connection or doesn't know how to use the technology. She's able to make appointments and go to the house and help them with those those problems that they have. We also have a Facebook. We encourage parents to that are at home to post if they can things that they're doing during the weekend, during the day, so we can show our children here what they're doing too, so they can so we can keep that connection together. Also, we have a newsie every month that goes home, and so parents also know what's happening in our center. Staff is one of the benefits also. Staff is very savvy in technology, and we have enough computers and tablets. Parents also can, if they don't have a device, they can take one home to borrow. Another thing that we just did, one of the former students was able to raise money to donate 10 laptops to our program. So we're very happy for that. Next slide. Challenges. Our challenges. One of the challenges is, again, the internet freezing. We sometimes the internet works and sometimes the internet doesn't work. So I assume that we're all having that internet problems. Everybody is tuning in somewhere, and so again, we're also having issues with the internet. Parents not being consistent with tuning into Zoom. We're having an issue with that because sometimes parents tune in, sometimes they don't tune in, and we have to constantly communicate with them to please tune in. To please, it's very important for the children to tune in. Also, lack of technology skills. Sometimes there's some parents who know how to use a computer, and then there's some that don't. And also sometimes they have to go to work, and they rely on the grandparent or the aunt or the sibling to help the children tune in. And sometimes we face that issue. Communication. Again, even though we communicate with them and we have so many ways to communicate, sometimes they do not return a phone call or a text. So that is frustrating because our teachers have to do their DRDP, which is a tool to assess the children. So we're having a hard time with that. Parents are not being consistent with picking up the curriculum back. We have a curriculum back for every child to take home, but sometimes the parent doesn't pick it up, or they will tell us, "Oh, we're picking it up," and they never do. So that's when our distance learning specialist, she set up times to go to the house and take it home. Space. We do not have a classroom or enough classrooms for our teachers to do Zoom. So sometimes they have to be outside. The good thing is that we're having beautiful weather, so they can go outside and do Zoom. And again, sometimes they have to wear masks. They have to wear the visor, just because also there's staff walking around. So most of the time they use the clear visor so the children can see them. Next slide. So finally, these 10 months of COVID has been a challenge, and it has turned our lives around. Our children and staff had to adapt to new environments, health guidelines, approach learning in a safe way. Wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart has been a challenge. I'm not gonna lie, it's still a challenge because children, they take off their mask and sometimes they forget, or sometimes they remind each other, "You don't have your mask on," or "Stay away from me, stay away from me." So that's going to be a challenge for us also when we come back, when we start opening our classrooms fully to everyone, because now we have to reverse it. Now we have to tell children, now you can share, now you can play together. And so that's going to be very confusing for our children. But with all of that, however, our children continue to strive. And one of the things that we're looking forward and we're looking into is creating cohorts with the possibility of having outdoor classroom instruction, since the weather is changing. We're hoping that they're able to have classroom outside for those children who are so we can able to bring more children to a program, because we have a list of parents who want to come back because now everything is opening. Parents are going back to work and they're calling us. Do you have space? Do you have space? And I'm like, well, no, we can only bring 14 children, so we're looking into having outside classrooms. So hopefully that goes well, and we're able to do that so we can meet all our parents and our children. And again, I just want to close with thank you all to the staff at Centro for hanging in there, and they're true heroes. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Leticia. Thank you for all that information. And before we go on to our last speaker of this morning, again, thanks for everyone who has joined this morning's town hall for Centro De Niños. We do want to remind you a couple of things really fast, which is you can submit your questions. We already have some questions here ready for Dr. Guerrero to answer in a little bit when we go to our questions and answer session. But in the meantime, you can go ahead and still submit some more questions, and also be ready to raise your hand. You'll see something on your screen that gives you the option to click on and raise hand so you can actually ask questions through audio. And we will now go to our last speaker of this morning, last presenter of the morning. Her name is Silvia Gonzalez Campos, and she is working and has been working in the field of child development for 22 years with the Child Development Consortium of Los Angeles. Silvia, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Like Maria said, I'm a director of one of our centers. Our agency has 10 centers throughout. The center that I run is the one in Chinatown. And it's a small center. My capacity is 48 children. Of course, that's not what we have right now. But my normal capacity is 48. Right now, we're only serving 20 children. I have 2 classrooms. I have the younger preschool classroom, which is for children ages 2 to 3 and a half. And then I have my older preschool classroom, which is for children 3 and a half till 5. Right now, currently, we do have a 5-year-old that she was supposed to move on to kinder, but we gave the parent the option to leave her with us because her school was closed and she had to work. And she was really appreciative that we were able to keep her. And she didn't have to worry about where was she going to take her because her school was closed. Vishal, do you have my slides? Thank you. First slide. Okay, so when all this happened and we had to, we started getting less and less kids in our center. First of all, we never closed. Our center never closed. That was something that a lot of our parents were worried about, that we were going to close. What were they going to do? My center never closed. But of course, parents were scared. They didn't want to take their kids to school. They were worried of what was happening, what can happen. I was down to, from having 48 children, I went down to having like 10 children a day. And it was uncertainty for everybody. The teachers were like, what's going to happen? Are we still going to have our jobs? Parents were, is it safe for me to bring them, but I need somewhere to leave my child. We met, with all the directors at our agency, and my program director and Sama Sanchez, they didn't give us a uniform of this is how you have to do it. This is how you have to do your distance learning. They gave us directors the option to decide what worked best for our families, because every center is a family, every center is different. So what I decided to do is I decided to reach out to my families and ask them. And I let them know, we're still gonna provide activities for your children to do at home. We're gonna provide materials, but what is your preference? How do you want us to communicate with you? Do you want phone calls? Is that what's gonna work for you? Do you want emails? Is that what's gonna work for you? Zoom. With Zoom, I got a lot of hesitance from my parents because they already had the frustration of having to do Zoom with their other children at a certain time. And some of my families had multiple children that were gonna have to be on Zoom. and they had to sit with that child because they're kinder, first and second grade, and they're busybodies. I didn't want them to have to do that with me too. What I ended up doing was Class Dojo. That was new to our center. Some of our other centers in our agency, they were already doing Class Dojo, but that was new to us. I was kind of hesitant. I didn't think the families were gonna like it, but they do, and it works great for how we did distance learning. So for those of you that don't know Class Dojo, and I realized that a lot of my families already were doing using this app with their other children that have kids in elementary school. So it worked out great. I'm able to upload pictures of what we do every day, and all the activities that we do. I'm able to upload them on Dojo. I'm able to send parents private messages. I'm able to send parents links. So it worked out really good. This app worked out really good. And once we decided with each family how we were going to communicate with them, I created a contact log. So that way I could keep track of what parents are getting contacted by the teachers. And also because we did need it for documentation for the state, because I am a state funded program. But that was a way of keeping track of me being able to keep track of, okay, making sure the teachers are contacting the parents. We also created a calendar and a daily schedule. So every teacher knew this is the time I can talk to the parent, I can send a message on Dojo to the parent, and they knew that's the time that parent had, because we wanted to be sensitive to that too. We wanted to give them an opportunity to tell us, this is when I can do it. Because we are a center that runs from 7 to 6, we had all day, giving the parents the time that they had for us. Because we know, the parents that had kids in elementary school, they had to be out at a certain time. So we kind of squeezed in to whatever time the parents had. Next slide. So I got together with my staff and we talked about how are we gonna make these children feel still part of our center, still part of the classroom, and how are we gonna send home things that they were familiar with, where the other parent had to do was kind of sit with them and do the activities, not really teach them something new, because these are all things that they were already doing with us. So what I had each of my staff do is create a little activity packets. First of all, what I also did is I talked to each parent and I asked them, what school supplies did they need? We assume parents have glue, scissors, and crayons at home, but some parents don't have these materials. So what I did is I had a whole bunch of lists. I had a list for everything. So I also created a list of what the parents needed. Did they need crayons? Did they need glue? Did they need scissors? And once I knew all the materials that they needed, we created these activity packs that we sent home along with school supplies, and each teacher planned activities geared towards the child and their needs. All packets were different because every child obviously develops different and every child had a different need. Because this all happened around March, the teachers were already almost done with the developmental portfolios for that. So they already had all the activities that they knew that they were going to do, because they already had their planning. What we did is we asked parents to come and pick up these packets, and they let us know, okay, this is the time I can go. And next slide. We had a little pickup table where the parent will call us and let us know when they were at the gate. We would put it at the table and they would pick up their materials. Later on, what my agency did is they asked us what other materials could they provide for our families. And of course, we want, like I said, we wanted for our kids to feel at home, like they were using things that they had in school. So we sent ideas to our executive director, and she ordered these materials for our families. Manipulatives are something that kids don't have at home, but we have in school. So it was a little bit of different things that we use at school. Watercolors, geometric shapes, Play-Doh. Along with that, I also sent home a Play-Doh recipe, which is pretty simple. And I said, if you guys don't have salt, flour, I'll give it to you. so you guys could do these activities at home. A lot of, and every preschool usually, as a group activity, we make Play-Doh. So kids were familiar with how to make the Play-Doh. Obviously, they needed their parents' help to do it. But yes, so we sent this activity packets home. We did have, I think one of my families was not able to come pick it up. And what my agency did is they mailed it out to them because that family was not able to come and pick it up. Next slide. What we did next is we created, well, my agency, my program director sent us this format of planning, a way to plan, a more extended planning for each child. So each teacher, once again, they created these plannings. And as I don't know if you could see really good, but it's geared towards different areas: social, emotional, language and literacy, problem solving, math and science, and physical health. So each parent was given, so on Class Dojo, I was able to upload this lesson plan. But when we spoke to the parent, we kind of explained it more in detail of what is it that they were going to do with the materials that they were provided. And of course, always in contact with them. Do you need more materials? If they didn't understand the activity, we would change it. But this was a plan that we went off of. And if there was any changes that needed to be done, we did it. Next slide. Challenges. So one of the challenges was that some parents, they couldn't pick up their material. I mean, like I said, what my agency did is they mailed them. They mailed them out to the families. And that was because we wanted them to have what they needed to work at home. Teachers cannot contact parents. Although we had decided on times, and we understand it's hard. It's hard for sometimes for parents that are home with their other children to be able to pick up the phone when we're calling them. But the only thing I do ask, if there's any parents here on the call, is that if you haven't heard from your child's school in a week, contact them, because maybe they're trying to contact you, and I mean, there's some sort of miscommunication or miscontact. Also, if your phone number changes, because I know that sometimes a lot of people, when they get a new phone and they just get a new number, they're not attached to the number. Make sure you always give your, you always call the school and let them know when your number changes. It's real important right now, because when we need to get a hold of you, we want to know that you're okay. I was not just contacting families for activities. I was also contacting families to make sure that they were okay. I was sending them resources with the EBT program, where they can pick up food, materials. So I wasn't just contacting them about distance learning. I was also contacting them to make sure that they were okay. And if they needed anything, that if I couldn't help them with it, that I could provide them a resource of somebody who could help them. So it's really, the communication is really important for you. If your child is not attending the school right now, that you keep that communication going with the teacher or the director of the program. Another challenge was working parents, because they were leaving their child home with somebody else that was taking care of them. Maybe they were not able to communicate, language barrier, so that was a challenge. But with the working parents, what we decided to do is we would, because I have the Class Dojo app on my phone, I was able to, after hours, send messages with them if they had any questions about the activities that were sent to them. The last challenge, siblings also distance learning. So yes, all of my families that were not attending, they had another child that was doing school on Zoom. And because these children are in elementary school, they had to be there a certain time. And it was really hard for the parents to do both. So I didn't put pressure on them. I just let them know, these are the activities that I have for you. Whenever you have time or a chance to do it, go ahead and do it. But what I did ask parents to do this fall, because we did have to do the developmental profiles is whenever they would do activities, I would ask them to take pictures and send them to us. That way, with a little note of how the child did or what the child did. That way the teachers would be able to put that in their notes, in their anecdotal notes, and finish the developmental developmental portfolios. And that's it. That's how we were able to manage. I'm happy to say that my center has never closed. I've never had to shut down a classroom. We've been very fortunate and keeping very safe. We've never had to close this whole time. All my staff has been with me. I'm very grateful that we have a staff that's there from day one, like, okay, what do you need us to do? Adapting to the changes. And of course, what happened is that some kids started returning little by little when parents felt, okay, I mean, they're open, so it should be okay. And the children, as they came back, they had to adapt to the changes. Because when they left, it was free for all. Learning centers were open. You could play with whatever you wanted. Well, now that they returned, there was a limit. This is your space. This is the only space. This is, everything's divided with tape. You can only use what's in your box. When they get there, we do what we call shopping. They have a basket. They go around the classroom and they put in their basket what they want to use. And nobody else could use their things. Only they could use them. But I'm glad to say that right now, as of October, our last child returned. We don't have any child that's doing distance learning right now. Everybody returned, all our kids returned. Half of them from last year, they moved on, they went to kinder, but of all the kids that were at home, all of them returned. So right now I'm not doing any distance learning. Of course, if I do have a family that decides, you know what, this is taking too long, I'm gonna keep them home again, then now we know exactly what to do. Now we have a plan and we know what we can do to help them. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And thanks to everybody who presented this morning so far. And I just want to let the parents know who have joined this town hall that we have about 30 more minutes. And we do want to hear from you. And Dr. Guerrero, of course, wants to answer to a lot of your questions. And there's an option that you can use to be able to ask your questions via audio. Just click on the raise hand and we will be looking out for your questions there. We also have some other questions that, of course, Dr. Guerrero, these are mostly for you. These are questions from parents' perspective regarding emotional and behavioral issues of their young children in these times of social isolation. So one of the questions is physically playing with other children the only way for children to have healthy social development?
The answer is no. It is definitely a form of children, the way children commonly interact with others before COVID. And after I give my my response, I think probably some better examples might be coming from the other panelists who have probably come across some really creative ways that families and parents have adapted essentially since COVID. But some immediate things that come to mind, like other ways to promote, play and relationships with their peers or with friends, extended family members, is of course through like FaceTime, right? So doing, what I would encourage is not just sort of like the act of FaceTime as a way to see your friend or see your grandparent, but rather using that as an opportunity to really focus on how you use that as a learning opportunity, right? To encourage social emotional development. So for example, if kids are connecting like through FaceTime or through Zoom, instead of maybe something kind of more passive, like this is probably old for an older kid, let's do our work together, is, can they play a game that still requires taking turns, perhaps experiencing frustration if there's a loss. Something that comes to mind is like, I think it's called like apples to apples, or, some sort of game like that, where I think they're still learning patience, learning how to interact with others. And the same thing comes to mind for also like FaceTime with a grandparent or with a family member. I think it's an incredible time to also build what we call like empathy, or the ability to try to imagine or learn what others are feeling, right? And so again, as opposed to having it be a more passive experience, like, you know, let's call grandpa, but perhaps either before or after, you know, doing a little bit of like prep, or just, you know, check in a few ways, like, how do you think grandpa felt? Or, you know, what was your favorite part about the interaction? And, you know, I think the other way I think to really, I think, promote empathy is, you know, for maybe a parent or even a sibling could do this is, you know, what do you think, I'm going to keep using grandpa, what do you think would make grandpa really happy? What does he really like, right? Is it a joke? Is it a painting, or picture, I should say? You know, all of those things, I think they're small, but it's again, kind of reinforcing this idea of, you know, how to make others happy, how to play, how to interact, how to make themselves also, right, feel happy, feel joy. So it's one thing that comes to mind with like any kind of FaceTime. The other thing I think that is, I've seen it with my own nephews, nieces, but I haven't seen in a really long time, is kind of going back to the old handwritten letters. So whether it's that, like, if it's a slightly older kid, even just like that they sign their name, you know, next to a picture. I've received that, and it's really cute. It's adorable. And so I think that those are also ways that, again, you can help support, you know, relationships, the importance of sustaining those, and, you know, kind of thinking about like, or letting them know, I think, you know, this would probably make them feel really happy or really good. I think the other thing also that comes to mind is related to the importance of, you know, trying to build healthy social-emotional skills in the absence of like lots of interactions and activities, is to also really try to focus on children learning to identify and express the different feelings that they might have. And I know that sounds kind of like, oh, of course, like that's easy. But what I mean by that is, you know, something like, as a parent, I think that we all do is you can look at your child and feel, of course they're happy. Look at them, they're like playing, you know, they look like they're fine. Or of course they're upset, they're crying. But I think a way to really support that even more, if you can, is either like through books or through pictures. But I think a cute, maybe practical strategy might be to take pictures of your child with different feelings. Like, what's your happy face? What's your sad face? What's your angry face? What's your I'm tired face? I'm hungry, right? And making those visible for the kids, so that you know, they can, I think, turn to that if they you know, are just kind of learning to express feelings, or perhaps they're just not just learning, but they perhaps, one would expect them to, but they're having a little bit of a hard time. So I think really trying to, and maybe even like build new kind of what we call them, like emotions that perhaps maybe wouldn't get as much focus. Like, one that comes to mind is gratitude, right? Like gratitude. That's probably maybe something that maybe we learn somewhere later in life, but, you know, gratitude, what is that? And how do you begin to teach kids what, you know, what gratitude is? Like, what should we be, you know, thankful for, or appreciative of? And then, you know, and I mean, an act of showing gratitude. So to do something nice, let's say for your teacher, right? To do something really nice for people who are working really hard. And I think, you know, kids and families recognize that a lot of people are under different types of stress. And so what are some small ways to bring, you know, a smile, or to build a show gratitude? So some like kind of easy things, practical ways that come to mind. But and I think we can have the panelists, I think, also share what they've seen. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Very good. So one of the things that, especially this week, and this is why I remember, is that we had role playing on Zoom with the teachers on safety. And so I was watching one of the teachers do 911, calling 911. So she pretended to be the dispatcher, and she would get her phone and say, just 911, dispatcher, how can I help you? And so she practiced with each one of the children. And so this whole role playing with them made them each take turns, of course, and they became the dispatchers, and they're the ones that were telling, my doll is sick, I can't do whatever the doll is doing, right? And so, so that helps them to at least physically, you know, play on Zoom by doing role playing. So.
I have an idea. Also, making books. Making books is a very useful way to illustrate, to write down feelings, to write down what they're doing. They can share them with during Zoom. They can share them with family members. I'm a big believer in journals and making books, because that's the only way that you can express feelings and also share with your family. I taught for many years elementary, and one of the things that I did with the children a lot, is making books so they can share it with their friends, they can share it with their parents, share it with, and now from COVID, share through Zoom with family members. Again, journals are very important. My daughter, I have a 16-year-old. She's been doing journals since she was a baby. Even she squiggle, she did scribble things, but then I would say, "Oh, what is that?" She's like, "Mommy," and I would write "Mommy," And then as she got older, I would say, "What is Mommy doing?" And she would write, "Mommy, to the store," and I would write, "Mommy is at the store." So again, that interaction with the children, and it's very important. Bookmaking is very important. It doesn't matter if they're 1-year-old, 6 months through like high school. Is very important to get into a habit to have journals.
Go ahead, Sylvia.
Going back to social emotional development, we just had Valentine's Day, and this year we haven't had kids bring anything from home. Usually they would bring their little pre-bought Valentine cards to pass out. What we did this year is they actually drew a Valentine for their friends in the classroom, which I feel was more, it came from the heart. They drew a special drawing versus passing out any Valentine. They drew it. And I heard a child, when the mom picked her up, her mom's like, "Oh, you drew all those?" And then all those? And then she said, "No, these are for my friends. They drew them just for me." So I think that made it more special, that that drawing was for me, from my friend. So that's what we did this year.
Thanks, everyone. We do have a question on audio. We have Nenita Valladolid waiting for us. Nenita, welcome. Hope you can hear us, and we're ready for your question. Okay, I see you. I don't hear you yet. There we go. Hello, Nenita. Do you want to unmute? Can you hear us? There you go. There you are.
I'm here. Yes, ma'am. Good morning. This question is for Dr. Alma Guerrero, because she discusses on something about self-awareness, and it's very important for a child to have self-awareness as being part of the social-emotional skills. So it demonstrates and identifies and expressing emotions regarding this. So what will be the outcome or the results of this awareness? The identifying and expressing emotions.
Okay, thank you, Nanita. So let's see if I can summarize the question. It sounds like, is the question, what is the outcome or like what is the benefit of children being able to identify and recognize their feelings? Is that? Oh, I'm having a hard time, but I think you're trying to communicate something.
Uh,
Um,
yes.
or do others on the panel think that that's what the question was? I wasn't.
So yes, we are being told that is a question,
Okay,
and
okay.
none of us can hear her either. We know she's trying to talk to you.
Got it. Right. Yeah, that seems like why would we need to do that, right? Well, for so many reasons. I think one is so that you can communicate with family members. You can ask for help. You can make others happy by sharing your joy, right? With your teachers, with your peers. You know, instead of like if you're feeling frustrated or you're feeling, you know, angry, for kids to be able to learn how to communicate that and express that is really important, because one outcome possibly could be like what we would call a child acting out, right? Hitting, throwing themselves on the ground. Those are all just, they're having strong emotions. And so the importance of like being able to not just share those, but the importance of sharing those is then, you know, someone can help you, like, you know, help and feel a little better, right? Do you need a hug? That sounds really hard. I'm so sorry. Like, let's take some deep breaths, right? All of that I think is important, because it's helping children again learn how to communicate their needs with words, and learning how to express themselves in safe ways. And that's the fundamental of like relationships, right? As human beings, we are hardwired to want relationships, to want love, to be part of a family, to be part of a class. No one wants to be an outsider, right? And so all of these things help and build that kind of fundamental skill or ability, right? So that as they progress through school, you know, that those are not challenges that they're going to have. How to express themselves, how to ask for their needs, how to turn for help, how to, you know, let people know that they're happy, or that you made, like the example that the teacher made, you made me really happy that you gave me these Valentine cards, right? For kids to verbally say that can be like, and show that maybe through a hug, right? It doesn't maybe always have to be verbal. But that is part of emotional development and teaching kids that like, how could we, what do you think would be a really nice way to show your friend who made you like this Valentine card, a nice way to thank them, right? Would it be through a hug? Would it be through a thank you card? All of that is, again, really important for building relationships, finding joy, promoting health in general in safe ways. So those are some of the things that immediately come to mind. Perhaps, I don't know if others on the panel want to add to that, but
Thank you, doctor. So if no one's adding to that, I do have a couple more questions. Sorry, Teresa, were you going to go on? No? Okay, great. We're going to move on with a couple more questions. And again, I'm just going to say to the people and the guests and the parents who have joined us, you have that option to either send us a questions. I see a couple of questions that have come in. And also you have the option to click and also just like Nanita did, go on audio, raise hand is where you have to click for that. This is an interesting question, doctor, and for everyone on the panel, I think a lot of us can relate. If a child has siblings that live together at home, can that be like considered a substitute for healthy social development?
absolutely, right? I think the challenge might be is like, how do you promote like healthy interactions, right? Because I imagine like sibling rivalry, or like, you know, if it's a younger child who still hasn't learned how to share, like obviously that seems like it's more of a stressful situation than actually helping them learn healthy social emotional skills. So short answer is yes. But it's a lot more complicated than that, I think, and particularly because, you know, like no two kids, no two families are the same. And so I think it's probably having perhaps a better understanding of like what the age, the child of the age, right? And sort of thinking about, okay, well, what are some important ways that, you know, we can support and, you know, promote, like I said, like whether that's empathy, whether that's identifying feelings, whether that's communication, whether it's just play, like, you know, being able to, for a child to experience and have fun and be able to play. Yeah, a sibling can, you know, totally do that. And even if it's like, let's say a preschooler and there's an infant or like a newborn, but again, opportunity to, you know, try to teach the older preschooler, you know, this baby is so small, baby likes hugs, baby needs to be fed. Like these are the important things that we all need. Would you like to help, right? And it's, so I think there are opportunities. I think what's a little challenging about the question is perhaps not knowing the age, right, of the child, but absolutely they can. And, you know, I think what's really important for all of us to remember is the most important people for any child are those that they are consistently around. So absolutely a parent, absolutely a sibling. And trying to remember those things, like what supports healthy development, love, safety, I know what's coming, that if I ask for help, it's like what we call that just nurturing caregiving. So that a sibling, you know, can be helpful if the younger one or the older one needs help or is mad or is frustrated. I'm going to go call mom, right? I mean, whatever, I think it sort of comes up for the child, but I think kind of remembering what some of those fundamentals are for healthy development, we can kind of think about, okay, well, what are some ways that we can, you know, try to support that in the activities or in the ways that siblings might be spending some time.
Also, again, Dr. Guerrero, you're right, depending on the age of the sibling, because older siblings will help the younger ones most of the time. But we do have a lot of twins this year. So on Zoom, we can see that the twins fight with each other a lot and argue. And so I'm always watching to see, as a director, how the teacher is going to engage them so that they can stop the fighting, or, you know, what is she going to do? That is my reason for watching, because I'm watching the teacher, unfortunately, you know, and I do watch what they're doing. And so my thing is, how are you going to engage these children that are fighting with each other? So yes, siblings are very important right now, but it just depends on the age. Because the older ones, even like a second grader, is helping the preschooler. No, you have to touch this button. No, you have to unmute yourself because she can't hear you. And it's very interesting to watch on Zoom. So that's just coming from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you for that, Teresa. I agree. It's hard. It's hard to, unfortunately, I wish that we could share some pearls and some great strategies, but I think it really does depend on the age. And but I think not only remembering, trying as a parent, or even if you're an older sibling and you're watching this, you know, what are those ways that I can, you know, make sure that I'm providing those, like, you know, 4 fundamental things, right? And what I would encourage parents, caregivers to do is, if it's like, you know, an unsettling response, reach out to your pediatrician, reach out to your child's teacher, reach out to parents who might also have children, right, of the same age. I don't think that any of us can do this alone. And so I think now more than ever, I think the relationships that you have are really, really important. So I would say, you know, don't forget about reaching out, because this is hard. And I think that you can probably get more support or like strategies with more specifics if you can have, you know, a conversation with the age of the child, and perhaps also kind of learning a little bit about the home routine, right? Like where is, if it's like sibling rivalry, for example, like when is that peaking? Like what are the settings or what are those situations on a daily basis where that always comes up and it becomes extremely frustrating, right? So I think that kind of conversation could be really helpful if there's a parent or a caregiver, you know, really wanting to support what kids aren't perhaps getting in a school or center-based setting.
The only thing I wanted to add is if the gap is very big between the siblings, like it's a preschooler and a middle school child, try not to make it a task for the older sibling to always engage with the younger child, because then that becomes like kind of like they have to do it. I had that situation with one of my families where the sister was the contact for us, and she was the one that we were communicating with for the activities. And she was doing it only because her mom made her do it. She didn't really want to do it. She wasn't rude to us or nothing, but I could hear in her voice her frustration of, why do I have to do it? You want to make it something that's fun. And like Dr. Guerrero said, contact the teacher. There's so many links, so many resources that can help you encourage your kids to engage, but don't do it all the time because it's frustrating for the older child.
Yeah, I come across that a lot as a pediatrician when the family makeup is always so different. And the other way I think that can be really maybe powerful way for a parent or for someone else to try to understand that is it's wonderful for every family member to be part of the family, to support the family. Like we do this together, like we support each other. We all want to thrive in school and work, right? That is absolutely what we want to teach all of our children. But I think that, as Silvia pointed out, I think there can come a time and a place where for an older sibling, if they are taking on more caregiver responsibilities, what can happen is that older teen or child they're getting frustrated because it's almost like they're cheated out of their, kind of childhood teenage experience. How is that fair? Right? And so I think if you kind of think about it that way, it may also kind of help understand where that frustration comes from. It's like, but the more we ask of them to do, and especially kind of more to do as a caregiver for the younger ones, it's, it kind of can have that feeling, I think, for a teenager. And the idea, I think, is, it's a balance. And so I think kind of checking in with yourself is like, am I maybe asking, my teenage kid to maybe do more than maybe they really have to, or can I spread it out in some other ways? Can I have someone else to help? But I do realize every family is different. And the truth is sometimes family situations, that is the only way. And so I think that if that is the case, then I think it's extremely important to validate those feelings that a teenager might have. Like, I know this probably, how are you feeling? I know that's probably really, really hard that you have to, like step in and do all this, and, letting them know that it's okay to feel that way. What can I do to support you? It's temporary, whatever I think reassurance you can provide, I think, to that teen, but I think just validating their experience, if it's something that's just kind of not negotiable, or a family doesn't have the ability to change that. It is, sometimes it is that way for some families. And so I think that's a really important point. I see that a lot. And I feel like I have a lot of breakthrough moments with teenagers when I can reach out to them with this approach. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Celia.
Well, for us at Centro De Niños, this came up this week. because a parent started communicating with a distance learning specialist. And she was telling me that a lot of the parents are complaining a lot about the siblings fighting and arguing, and like, are you open? Are you open? Do you have any spaces? Because it is happening. The families are feeling stressed because, you know, some families might have the skills how to, you know, have dialogue with the siblings and help them, but then there's some parents who don't because they're tired, they're working, you know, they want to come home, they have to cook, and so, you know, it creates more friction, and especially if the sibling is older. And so one of the things that you said about all of these things that they have to have, for me, the most important is for children and to feel stability. They feel that my household is stable. I'm provided with these things. So stability is very important for young children, teenagers, and open communication.
Thanks everyone so much. I really, really admire everything you guys just told us. Is very useful. And thanks to everyone who joined this town hall. Thank you to Centro De Niños. Thank you to Sandy and Doctora Guerrero. Thanks so much. Silvia, Leticia, Teresa, everyone that was a part of it. We really appreciate your time this morning. And if anybody else has anything else they want to say, we have come to the end of the town hall, and it's been great. It's been great information. Oh, sorry, everyone. We are going to take, okay, yes. So we're going to take one last question. Sorry, we don't want to leave Sandra just waiting. One final question. Sandra Icho has a audio question. Hi, Sandra, welcome. We see you now. Unmute yourself and we will
There
be
you
able to
go.
hear you. There you go.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that I was able to join your meeting. Very informative and very, reminded me of stuff that sometimes I forget. But you know what? I loved everything, but, because now we have to adapt to new changes and new normal, I guess. I would like to ask if she can explain the lady when she say the children go shopping to use the toys they're gonna use for the day. So I want to know if they do that in the very early in the morning when they come in, or when it's a small group, or how do they do that?
Yes, it's when they arrive. It just depends. So my kids, my center opens at 7. So as soon as the first children arrive, the teacher in the classroom, they give them a little basket and they start choosing things that they feel like they might use throughout the day. Of course, if after small group at work time, they decide, I want to use that car, and they can go and add to their basket, but they start off with a basket of the materials they chose when they arrived. Usually it's upon arrival. It just depends. If that classroom is already outside, then they have to wait, obviously, to go back in to do it. But yes, it's when they arrive.
Thank you. I was gonna ask you, are they able to add or take off some stuff up through the day?
Yes.
And thank you
Yes.
so much. It was so nice.
Thank you for your time, Sandra, and thank you for your question. And so we've come to 12 noon. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks to Centro de Niños. Thank you, Sandy, and for everybody who made this possible. Dr. Guerrero, again, thank you all the panelists, all the speakers, Silvia, Leticia, Teresa. We truly appreciate all this information. Thanks.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Bye.